Hello and welcome to the Foltz Fitness Podcast. We are happy that you joined us for another episode, and we can't wait to dive in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. We are slowly getting back into training after some rest time post Leadville and feeling pretty good.
That's great.
So in this episode, we're going to discuss all things gear and fueling for Leadville, as well as some tips for crewing Leadville if it is your first time. We put a lot of work into our fueling strategy and wanted to share with you all what that looked like for us. With Lilly being the crew chief, she took plenty of notes, and she just did a lot of helping out with this and planning everything for every stop that we had throughout the race.
Yeah, I think fueling is one thing that is extremely important. And fueling strategy is something that we really prioritized in this race prep and race series. I am excited to share what that looked like for us.
Yeah, we actually had a lot of detail on this, but before we get into our fueling strategy, I want to go over all the gear that I used and brought with me to Leadville. There's always a lot of questions surrounding gear and what people are using, so I just want to go over a quick rundown of what I used throughout the race. So I'm going to just kind of work from the ground up on my kit. The shoes I started in were On Cloud Ultra Pros. Mm-hmm. They are one of On's new trail shoes for the year. And I've never been an On user before, but these were recommended to me and they did well at Western States. So I was very intrigued with them. So I got a pair and I absolutely loved them. They're probably one of the most comfortable pairs of shoes I own, and that includes road shoes. So definitely some cool stuff from On. I wore these for 62 miles and then switched out into some Hoka Challenger 8s. These are just more of a max cushion shoe. And I also had the Hokas in a half a size bigger because of feet swell late in the race. So definitely recommend having second pair of shoes, and definitely helps if you can get a half a size bigger. The socks I wore were in Gingy toe socks. I've been using toe socks for quite a few years now.
A long time.
Yeah, many of my ultras. So never probably going to deviate from those, as they've done well for me. My half tights were Nike Lava Loops. Again, something I've used over and over again. Probably the most comfortable half tight I own. And again, they don't cause me any chafing or issues or anything like that. So moving up to the shirt, I wear rabbit shirts for ultras. I don't think that the style of shirt I use is technically on their website anymore. I'm sure they have some awesome options available.
Yeah. So I would say something similar.
Yeah.
I'm sure. One thing I wanted to highlight is this has kind of come through experience. If this is your first time doing a 100-mile race or getting into the trail side of things, it will take some time to figure out what works well for you. And I think that has just come from doing so many races and training so often, that you really found what you like and what works best for you.
Absolutely. A common theme throughout this episode is going to be try it out in training. Whether that's fueling or gear, it's important to use your long runs and prep to find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Because the last thing you want to do is get to race day and realize your pair of shorts causes really bad chafing.
Yeah.
So shirt was rabbit. Pack is a Solomon Advanced Skin 12. I've used this pack for all my years of running now, and I have two of them now. So it's always good to have backups. So we did have two packs, but we only utilized one.
Yeah, that's something that we've learned throughout this ultra series and ultra training races, all that you've done. Some people prefer to switch out the packs. We did not during this race. The 50-mile race you did for Mohican, we did switch out your pack. That does make the aid station stops a bit quicker. We didn't think that was really necessary this one, since you were going to be taking a few minutes getting off of your feet, and we didn't want to have to worry about switching your bib over to a new pack as well.
Correct. So moving on to the hat, I just wore a Cieli hat. I think they're super comfortable. Keep the sun out of your eyes, keep the sweat out of your eyes. The watch I use is a Garmin Fenix 7, and I've really had no problems with this watch. It's lasted in both 100-milers without a problem as far as battery life goes. And I've only ever owned one watch, and it's been this one. And it's never given me any issues with tracking or battery life. For this race, you're definitely going to want to bring some extra layers because you're going to be up in the mountains, and it does get quite cold at night.
Absolutely. I think it got down to like 34 degrees or 36, around there. The feels like was definitely 34. I know us crew members, we had our winter coats on, but that's not really feasible for you during this race.
Right. But I believe I had about 4 different layers options to choose from. A couple long sleeves and then some outerwear hoodies. And I had a beanie. My beanie was from Jonji. It was a merino wool beanie, which was super comfortable and moisture wicking. I definitely recommend their beanies. Unfortunately, ours got lost in transport somewhere. So,
what leggings did you put on throughout the race?
I didn't wear like tight leggings, but I did have a pair of Jonji pants, and I did do something that I probably shouldn't have done, and I never wore my pants before Leadville, but they are super comfortable and I had no issues. So I put those pants on at Outward Bound 2, which would have been around mile 76, 77, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So I switched into some pants. Again, just bring redundancies, bring multiple layers. Even if you don't think you're going to use it, throw it in. It's not going to hurt for your crew to have it. My sunglasses were Rokas. So I've had Roka sunglasses for forever. I definitely recommend bringing some sunglasses for the day because the sun can get quite bright and intense up at altitude. Headphones were Shocks. I wore them till they died. They lasted about 10 and a half hours, and then I was not listening to anything after that. My trekking poles were Lecky. I love my Lecky poles. They're a super lightweight option, and they're very easy to use. Definitely recommend Lecky if you don't have any poles and are in the market for some. Headlamps, you definitely want to have multiple headlamps or at least spare batteries for your lamp because you never know if it could accidentally turn on while it's in your pack or it could just not work. And the last thing you want to do is be running on the trails without a headlamp. That would be worst case scenario. I think my main headlamp is a Petzl Nano something. I don't know. It's got a whole bunch of different options on it. And I wore it in both my 100s, and it's made it completely through both nights during those races. So great headlamp, but I also carried a backup. I think it was just a black diamond headlamp as a backup.
I think also we, as crew members, had the ability to charge it. I think we had a portable charger with us, so we were able to charge it. When I plugged it in, it still said full charge. So yeah. I put it on the charger for a little while, even though I don't know that it did anything.
Because this race starts at 4 a.m., you have to use it for about 2 hours to start the race. So I gave it back to my crew, and they boosted it up, but I don't think it would have even needed a boost. But it made it through the race with no problems. And a new thing I did for this race is I used a waist light. So I have a flip belt that has a light that goes into it, and I tried it out in one of my overnight training runs this summer and really liked it because it kind of gave me 2 different points of light. It gave me one right at my feet and then obviously wherever I looked with my headlamp. So I used that flip belt light until May Queen, and then there was only about an hour left of dark, so I gave it to you because I wanted to go light from May Queen to the finish. So would recommend a waist light. If you haven't tried one, try it out. It definitely makes a difference. The last thing I used was just a buff. I like to tie a buff or bandana around my wrist just to have something to wipe sweat out of my eyes or wipe my face off or just really anything. They can be used for many different things. So I always like to carry a buff or a bandana on me at all times during ultras. So that is pretty much everything I used gear-wise. And really everything I used was tested, so I knew it was going to work for me on race day. So I really wouldn't change anything when it comes to the gear that we brought and utilized. One thing I didn't mention is a rain jacket. You will want to carry a rain jacket with you, and you should definitely put it in a dry bag in your pack so your sweat does not leak through from your pack onto that rain jacket, and you can keep it as dry as possible at all times. So definitely bring that if you're racing Leadville. Before we get into intra-race fueling, I want to cover what I consumed pre-race. I consumed 2 pieces of sourdough toast with grape jelly, 2 whole scrambled eggs, black coffee to help get things moving, if you know, you know, and 2 scoops of Tailwind with electrolytes added. So this totaled out to be about 690 calories, 128 grams of carbs, 1,120 milligrams of sodium, 10 grams of fat, and 21 grams of protein.
That's pretty typically what you'll eat for every race. I think a non-negotiable item is getting in something high carb and the coffee.
Absolutely.
I know you like to sip on electrolytes, but that seems like a lot of sodium. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I've always wanted to kind of front load my sodium for these races. Even during the carb load, I will load up on sodium in the 3 days leading up to the race.
It looked like
I don't know exactly what my numbers
being
were.
flexible. That is a huge part of our training plan.
The race, I have written down
that's
somewhere.
Something that I'll definitely take into my future preps is
Friday,
just
which was the
learning
day
to
before,
adapt
I
on the fly.
I probably hit almost
when
4,000
things
milligrams to 5,000 milligrams.
not the way I want them to be.
Wow.
And I think just
The
getting
fourth
ahead
thing
of it,
I want to
much like you
discuss
do with
is
carbohydrates,
accepting that no
it
prep
just
is
kinda,
going to be perfect, and
sets you
not
up
getting
for a
discouraged
better
about
race.
that
And,
because that's
I
completely
think
normal.
You got to
During a 12
experiment
to 16
with
week block,
with your
I
own,
will guarantee
supplementation
that you're
because
going to have
everybody's
bad
sweat rate's a
workouts
little
and
bit
miss
different.
splits.
I am a salty sweater.
You might get an illness
so
that
I know
sidelines
that
you
front
for a
loading
few
sodium
days
has
or
been
even a week.
beneficial for me.
I got sick
And when I'm
during
sipping
this
on
prep,
these,
and it was very
this
hard not to
Tailwind
get
and
down and
electrolytes,
discouraged.
I'm usually doing it
it
at
taught
least
me
40
that
minutes after I've had my first meal,
Missing a
all
few
the way
days
up
here
until
and
the start
there
of
is
the race.
not going to
So I
make
won't
you
just
lose all the
chug it
fitness
down,
you've
but I'll
built.
just sip on it
So
throughout the
I
whole
was out
morning leading
for
up until the start.
it was a very minor sickness. I felt it for
Another thing
a day and a half
that
really
is
hard,
a little bit
and then I
different
kind of
with
worked
my pre-race meal.
got over it and
I
worked
like
through
to
it. But
include a little bit
just
of
those few
protein.
days, I was kind of like I was supposed to be my first 20-mile long run workout.
What
And I wasn't
what
able to
other
get that
options
in,
do you
obviously, and
include
I
for
was
a
just
protein source
having
before a
trouble
race?
I
coping
just
with
like
that
to
for a little
stick
while,
with,
and I just thought that I was gonna
eggs.
it's gonna set me
in
back
any
a
form,
week.
whatever
But
I feel
in
like
reality,
that day.
that's definitely not the case.
Race,
It
was
takes
scrambled eggs.
at least 2 weeks of
I
not
think
training
they just
to
set well with me. It's something
start
I
losing
eat every
fitness.
morning of every day.
A few days here and there
regardless
that you
of
miss
if
because
it's a
of a
race or not.
sickness
So it's
or
just
maybe
something my body's
an
used
injury.
to and something
Sometimes
I know
you can get
sets well with my stomach.
little minor injuries, whether it's shin
So
splints
now we are going
or
to move
your Achilles isn't feeling
into
right or you got some tightness or
intra-fueling
heaviness in
strategy
the
for this
legs.
race.
Those things
Lily
can
and I
happen,
sat down
and
one-on-one
it can be very
before
easy to
we
get
had our full
discouraged.
crew
But
meeting and planned
taking
out
a few
every
days
stop
off
and
because
what I
of those
needed in
things
my
to make
pack
sure
for each
you
section
are good to
based
go
on
for the
estimated
future
time to
training, and
complete
we're not
each
doing
section.
any damage permanently.
Yeah, so
that's going to affect our race
for
performance.
this meeting, you
Is
and I sat down.
a huge thing that we have to be aware of.
We
So
calculated
just making sure that
quite a few things.
we're
I have my
accepting the
notes
fact that
here.
when we enter
Let's
a
see
marathon
all we
prep or any
calculated.
prep for that matter,
So
that it's
we
not going to be
calculated
perfect. There's going to be road bumps. There's going to
at each
be
aid
issues that
station,
arise,
how much
but we have
time would
to
have
know
passed
that
in
that's part of
between
the training.
this
That's
stop
part of the
and
plan,
the last stop,
and it's kind of who we become
as
in
well
those
as
moments. And we have to
estimated
make those
pace.
decisions
So
that
we had figured
makes us build
anywhere
that
between
character,
25
that
hours
confidence,
to 30
and it
hours
helps us grow
would be
as
when you would
individuals
finish,
through
which
that
is pretty standard for most
imperfection
runners.
and through that issue or
Anyway,
struggles in
we
those
figured out,
moments.
depending on
The fifth thing I
which
want to discuss is
kind of
training
hour you would be
faster
finishing, the
than
25
marathon
hour
pace.
mark, the 26
Now I'm going
hour
to take
mark,
a pretty
27,
deep dive into
28.
this because this is something
What
that I
time we
think
could expect you
was
at
the
each
difference
aid
maker for
station?
me
There's
in
an
this
Excel
marathon
sheet online
and
that
this
you can
race
find, and you can
performance.
put your estimated finish
I
time.
never really
and it'll give you
trained
time
that
of arrival
much
to each aid
faster than
station,
marathon pace
roughly,
in my first
and it
marathon build.
also
And I
takes into
definitely
consideration the
think
terrain
it
you're
was
running,
a
so
mistake
hills
on
and
my
whatnot.
part.
So
That pace
So I
calculator
did a
was
lot
fairly accurate.
of running in that first
we ended
marathon
up
build
writing in,
for the Glass City Marathon at marathon
your
pace. But
estimated
I never
actual
really
pace,
dabbled with going
not the
much
estimated pace.
faster
We
than
wrote in
that.
your actual pace
And
of arrival.
I think that
After
doing
we
it
had
in
seen you
this
at each
prep
aid station,
made me
as well
so
as
much
following
more
along with the
prepared
online,
for those later miles in the marathon
tracker.
than I was at
Yeah,
Toledo.
and I think it's important to
So
know when
you
you are
can
making this
incorporate
plan
mile
that you
repeats at 30
always
to 40
want
seconds
to
faster
err
than
on the
marathon
side
pace,
of things
and
going
holding
wrong
that pace
and
for
it
moderate
taking you
distances can be a
longer
game
than you
changer when it
anticipate.
comes to endurance. So this is one
think
way
it's one
that I
thing that we really
incorporated that
highlighted was
faster
we had an
running
idea
into my plan.
of when we could
and
expect you.
It was
And I knew that you had
definitely
other
a big difference
resources
on
and
those
drop
speed
bags
workout
that you
days.
could access
I was
if you
doing
needed
a
it.
lot more half-mile repeats.
But when we put
at
together
very fast
the
paces,
actual strategy
and
of
I was
what we were
doing
putting in
some
the
mile
packs,
repeats
we
at,
estimated,
like I said, 30 to 40 seconds
the time
faster
it was going to take me to
than
get to the
marathon
next
pace.
aid
And
based on the
they are
slowest
hard
possible.
workouts to do. I'm not saying that these are easy
Pace.
to do, and they're
which is
they,
important
They can be
because the last
taxing.
thing you
but
want to do is
man, the difference on race day late in the
have
race
something go wrong
was
and
just
you
crazy.
don't have enough fuel in
my
your pack
legs were
and
so
you get
much
behind on your
stronger,
fueling
so
because
much
that's
more
another thing that
conditioned
can
to
just
hit
snowball
my goal
and
pace
make for a pretty bad
late
day.
in the race.
Absolutely.
On top of this,
So at
it's
the
also
base of our
important to do
plan,
short
we were
and
shooting
fast
to get about
intervals.
110
So I'm talking
grams
track
of
workouts
carbs
here.
per hour,
These can be a
which was
great tool
equating
to
to be
increase
about
speed
440
and work
calories
those
per
higher
hour.
heart rate zones.
In addition to
and
that,
I'm going to give you an
we were
example of
hitting
a track
about
workout that I did
650
during this
milligrams
build.
of
I actually
sodium
did
per
it
hour.
a couple different times.
I feel like that's pretty
So
standard for
I started off with a
your
mile
ultra
warm up.
races. You
Before you
really
go
like to
into
front
any
load the
type of speed work,
sodium,
I recommend doing some warm up.
And I know towards the
Usually
beginning
a
of the
mile
race,
to
you
2
really
mile warm up
prioritize
is ideal.
more solid
So
food
then
that
I
you
went
can get down.
into
Later
800
in the
meter
race, you do
repeats.
kind of
So I did
solely
6
rely on
800s with
gels
a
and
minute
liquid
10 rest in
calories.
between. And I
So
was
for
trying to
this
hit those
race
800s
specifically,
at a 6:05 pace
you were relying
and trying to
heavily
finish
on
them
Morton
around
gels,
3
the
minutes.
160s,
And I was really happy if I could get under
BPN
3
Go
minutes in
gels,
those. So after
Tailwind,
I
high
ran those
carb,
800s, I took a minute
Tailwind,
30
just the
rest,
regular kind,
and then I moved into 5
and
400
BPNs,
meter
lemon
repeats.
lime electrolytes.
So
We
I was trying to hit these
originally had
400s at
planned
5:45
to have you
minute per mile
consume a
pace,
gel
which would
every
put
half
me
an
right
hour.
around a minute 30 for
You
the 400,
on your
and
own
then I would
time are
repeat this 5
rotating
times again with
between
that 70-second
Morton's
rest.
and Go gels.
After the 400s were over,
In
I
your
moved into some
bottles,
sprints.
We had
So I would
a
do
high carb pack from
4
Tailwind.
100-meter sprints with
You
100-meter
had
walk
planned to
recoveries in
consume
between each
a
one.
high carb pack every
This
2 hours.
is kind of
And
a
then in the
controversial
other-
topic because
extra
some
pack
people
in your
think the
back,
injury
you
risk
had
of
just a
sprinting
regular scoop
all out
of
and
Tailwind
hard
with a scoop
can
of
kind of
electrolytes
outweigh
from
the
BPN.
benefits that you get from it. But
And
I am
that
a
was just kind
huge
of your
advocate
backup
for
once
sprints.
you ran through
I think they are a
the high
great way
carb.
to just jack the
on
heart
your
rate
other
up,
side of your pack,
put
you
out
had
a
a flask
huge
filled with
effort
water,
through the legs,
and
just
everybody
really
knows kind of
work.
flavor fatigue.
It's
You can
funny
get
how
really
sprints
worn
are
out.
actually
Sometimes,
working
electrolytes
the muscular
and powders
system
can
a
be
lot more
extremely
than the cardio
tough on the
system
mouth,
because
kinda
if
dry
you
you
get
out.
done doing a day of
So
sprints,
it's important
you're
to
probably
have
going to be
water.
walking around like you're
One thing
sore,
that
like you just hit a big
you've
leg
said
workout,
a million times,
which is
ever
completely
since trying
normal.
Tailwind
But
is you
it's just
haven't experienced
funny
any flavor
how
fatigue or
sprinting
that dry
can
mouth
have a different
sensation.
kind of effect
Yes,
on your
it
body
is
than just
a big
going out
difference.
and
I used to
hitting tempo
always
runs
use
does.
G1
You can also incorporate
I always
faster
performed well
efforts
on it, but
in your marathon
it would
pace
definitely wear your mouth
long
out
run
after a
workouts.
while.
So
I don't
usually
really know why
about
that is.
halfway
It's
through
just
a prep,
kinda super foamy
instead of
and
doing
the
long,
flavors,
easy runs, we
really
kind of move
strong.
into
It is a very strong
long
flavor.
Tailwind
long run
is
marathon
a
pace
much lighter
workouts.
flavor.
So you
and
might have
I can just
something
get
like
it down a lot easier
2 mile
and
warm up,
quicker in
and
these
then
longer races than
2
at the
times
G1M,
3
which is
miles
why
at
we made the
marathon
switch.
pace with a 1
I always
mile
have
rest
that
in
extra
between those.
flask in the back of my
So
pack.
I'll give you an
and I always
example of
load
a
it
workout
with a higher
that I
sodium
did where I
content.
incorporated
So every
some
so
faster
often I'll just
paces
pull that out and take a
within that
huge
workout.
swig of that,
So
knowing
I
that I'm
started
getting
off.
extra
This
sodium
was
in. That
this
I'm
example
not quite
is
getting
my
from the high
peak
carb
long run
even though the high
before
carb
the
does
marathon.
have a
So
good amount of
I
sodium
did
in
a
it.
3 mile warm up, and that
So
was
this
just
was
roughly
the
at
base
an
plan going
850
into
pace.
the race. It was
And then I
something
went into
I have
4
practiced
miles
and tried
at
in my
marathon
long training
pace,
runs,
which
and
my
I
goal
found
time was
success with
3:15
this.
going in. So
I
I
felt
was running these
energized
4
throughout
miles
my
at
long runs and never
7:25
had any
pace.
major stomach issues.
Then I
on
would
this.
go into a half mile recovery again
On
at that
top of this nutrition
850-ish
plan,
pace.
I ate
And then I went
just what I
into 2
craved
miles
aid
at
stations.
7:15 pace,
This ultimately
which is
led
faster,
to
10 seconds
many
faster
liquids
than my
and gels
marathon
later in
pace,
the race, like
followed
Lilly
by a
already
1 mile
mentioned.
recovery.
And that's something that we've
at,
seen
again,
throughout
that easy
many of my
850
ultra
pace.
races.
And I repeated
that I
this
just do
segment
better
2
with
times.
gels and liquids
So
as
it
the
was a
race goes
total
on and gets
of
later.
I think it's really important that you have a plan in place
of
and
work
have extra
of
gels
marathon
and
pace or
resources
faster
available
work
within that.
for
And
if
then after I
when that
finished
happens,
that last
if
mile
this is your
recovery
first
in
time
that
going into
block,
those longer distances,
I went
I do
into
think
1
it's
mile
important to
hard
prioritize
effort.
a long training run
So I
to
was
know what your stomach
basically
will be
running
like after
not quite
so
as
many
hard as I
miles.
could, but like a 7 out of 10
That's just
on
one thing
the
we've learned through
perceived
experience.
effort
And
scale. So
what
I
settles
think I ended
well
up
is what's
clocking a
important, and keeping
644
things
mile
down is key.
during this workout
I would hate
on that
for you
final
to
mile of
kinda
marathon
cancel out our
pace
plan
per
and pick
se or
everything back
faster.
up.
Right. So hitting a
a
even though
644
we
mile,
did have this plan in place,
19
it is
miles
important
into
to
a speed
understand
workout. just built
There's
a whole lot
unforeseen
of confidence in
circumstances
me
that come
that
up
I could
in
definitely
these
hold
long
the
races
pace I
and
needed
things you can't
to
control
for
so
a long time.
if you have
in
to
this
deviate
case,
from your plan,
a marathon,
then you
so
have to.
Working in
Listen
those
to your
faster
body. Your body will
paces
tell you what
late
it needs.
in a workout like
And,
this, I think, is just a game
sometimes
changer when it
what
comes
you
to
had in mind
building your
isn't
endurance,
working that day.
building your confidence, and
Utilize the
teaching
aid
your tired
stations,
legs to
utilize what
run
they
at a
have,
faster pace
and,
than your goal
just
pace.
listen to your body.
And it will
I think
definitely
one thing too is all
change
the other crew
the game
members
for
are
you
there
when
and
you get
kind of
into your
prepared for this
marathon,
worst case
because
scenario.
your body
So
will
if
have
you are
had that
needing
experience
some
running
Pepto or
faster than goal
antidiarrheal
pace
supplements,
late in a long run like that.
or pills, I mean, somebody's going to have those there,
The
and it's
sixth
really
thing I want to talk
everybody
about
wants
is
everybody to
embracing
succeed, so they're more than
recovery
willing
and
to help
rest
each other
days.
out.
I'm really glad you
Now,
brought that up because that's something we
This
didn't
is
mention at all.
something that can be very
in the
difficult
previous
when
talk
you're
here,
a very driven
of
person
the different
like I am, because I
pills and
always want
remedies
to be
we had.
working towards my
Do
goal.
you remember what all
But
we
what we
had
have
as
to
far
remember
as Advil
is that
and things like that go?
recovery and rest is part
believe
of training. And a lot of people don't buy into
and your
that, and they
pacer,
can burn
Armand,
themselves
had
out and just kind
2
of run
servings
themselves into
of
the ground
ibuprofen,
during a training
2
block if
servings
they're
of
not
Tylenol.
utilizing
pack.
recovery and rest days.
You had extra
This is
Band-Aids.
definitely the hardest thing to do
Unfortunately,
on
you
this
didn't have
list.
extra tape, but this is
Like
one
I
of those
said, because when you're
scenarios
striving
where
for
other
that
crew
goal, you just want to
members,
be all in on
were
that.
able to help us out and
But
got
I
us some
have
KT
found
tape.
that incorporating one rest
You
day
had
or
a
off
pack of
day
tissues,
a week is best for me, because it allows my body to soak up the
biodegradable
training from the
toilet
past week
Yeah, something
and
that the
just
race
get
gave.
recovered
Yeah, it
for
was some
another
sort of
hard week
tablet
ahead.
that you
So
put
I
on the ground
generally
when you-
run. I'm
after you
running
use the
6 days a
bathroom.
week, Monday through Saturday, and almost always
think
my rest day
that's
falls
about
on
it.
Sunday.
Yeah, we had all
And
the
this is just a
all
good
the normal
thing
things
for
that-
mental
antidiarrheals,
clarity
and then
and
sorry, I
just
forgot.
ensuring I'm not getting burnt
Antidiarrheals
out
and
or injured.
Pepto
So I definitely
tablets
take my rest days
and
seriously.
Rolaids, I believe, is all that you
encourage you
had.
to
And
do
I
the
think I
same
just
thing.
put in there like 1 or 2
I've never
servings
ran
of each of
7
those, so it
days a
didn't really
week
weigh you down
throughout
that much.
any of
Yeah,
my
I had
running
the-
journey.
I had a little
and I would
like,
encourage you
kit
to
in the back of my
use
pack that had
a
all this
rest
stuff
day
in it. It
and
had
see what it can do
extra
for you,
chafing
because
ointment. It had
just
Band-Aids.
it
Had all
really
of
helps
the,
me not get get
different
burnt out when I'm in one of these big
antidiarrheal
preps.
stomach stuff. I just put it all in a
On
Ziploc
these
and
rest
kept it in
days,
there
you
the
should
whole
be
race.
doing some
And
stretching
I don't
and
think
mobility.
I use any of it.
Not necessarily
So
just on rest days, but
Armand, my
throughout the
pacer,
week
did
to help
share
stay loose
some
and combat any
Tylenol
injuries that
with
you
a
might be
fellow
having.
runner that needed it.
Generally, if you
So
have
always
any
there to help
leg
people out on the
injuries,
trails when they need
it is likely due to tight
So
muscles
as the race
or
went
something
on,
stiff.
we mentioned
And
that
if you can just
kinda
work in
switched to
some
just gels and
mobility a few
liquids,
times a week, even
and
if
I
it's
think
just a
we
few
started
minutes
to
before
back
bed,
off
it can
the
be
amount of
a
carbs
game
per
changer
hour.
when
I
it
think
comes to
by the
injury
end of the
prevention.
race, we were hitting probably
You can
about
also
70 to 80
incorporate
grams
some
rather
recovery
than
tools
that 110 number.
if you have access
I
to
remember
them.
you were mentioning
Compression
something after the
boots,
race
massage
about me
guns,
having
ice
more
baths,
stuff left over in my
saunas,
pack
etc.
after each aid stop,
really
starting about
anything
Outward Bound
that
2.
you've seen
Yeah, I
on social
began to
media
get a little
before
worried.
that
I
people are
noticed you
using
weren't
for recovery.
consuming
If
all
you have
of the
access to them,
necessary
then by all
gels that we
means,
had planned for.
just
So I just
use
wanted to
them
be sure that you were
and
still staying on
know
top of
that
stuff.
they're not going to cure everything,
definitely
but they can definitely be
As
of assistance
the
to
night
you
went
when you're
on,
trying
it
to
began
get recovered
to
for
get cooler out.
another day of
You
training.
were
So I
definitely
like
taking in
to
less
use some
liquids.
compression
We
boots.
found out
Normatec boots
after
are super
talking after the
expensive, and I
race that
have a
you
cheaper
had
version.
actually
I
filled
think they're
up your
called Sharper
flask
Image.
with
Lily got
some
them
of the
for me
aid
for
station
Christmas.
stop
And to be honest with you,
supplies,
I think they
like
do
the
the same thing
Scratch
Normatec does.
electrolytes
I don't know what the
and
difference is.
whatever-
I've used
I can't remember
Normatecs
what else they had.
before,
What did the aid station have that you filled
in a
with?
Restore,
had
they have
some
I don't know if you ever heard of
Scratch
Restore,
and
but
some Never
Restore is a
Second,
company
maybe?
that
I don't know.
think that's right.
I
They have
strictly used the Scratch
saunas,
because it
they
went
have
well.
cryotherapy,
The flavor they
they
had went
have
well with
compression
my
therapy,
lemon
IV drips,
Tailwind.
and there's one pretty
Yes,
local to us, so I've utilized them before
when you
for some
came into a
different
couple of the
things.
aid stations, I began to get a
Cryo
little bit worried,
specifically and
making sure that
sauna,
you were
but
still
they also
feeling
have
okay because
Normatecs
you
there,
weren't consuming
and
what
I've
we
used
had
their
planned.
Normatec boots before, and to be honest,
that
they do the
that's
same thing that the
just,
Sharper
again,
Images
we
do.
have to stay on top of
And
it, or it
the
can
Sharper
continue
Images
to
are just
snowball,
significantly less
and get to a
expensive.
point where
So
you can't
if you're in the
come
market
back
for
from.
some compression boots,
But,
check them out. In addition
from
to all
there,
this, recovery
you
is highly
had
affected
a couple of
by
those
your
snacks left
diet
in your
and
pack.
eating habits.
You had stopped at a couple
So
of aid
it's
stations. You
important
had
on these
kinda
recovery
stocked
days
up
that we
on
do
the
not
Bobo's
restrict
oat bites,
calories.
some banana
And this kind of
of goes back to what I was talking about earlier of how runners are underfueled. Many times we think that because we're not working out, we don't need to eat as many calories. We're not burning
those are really good
hardly any calories for the day because we're taking it easy. But our body still needs fuel.
Keep things
we
down.
need
at least 2,000 calories, depending on who you are, at least 2,000 just to function a day. That's what we're burning, just being alive at the bare minimum. So we need to be getting in at least that. But
ginger ale definitely helps
specifically
your belly.
if you're an athlete, you should be getting more than that in, even on your rest days. And I used to fall victim to this too. Like I said, I came from a background of trying to lose weight and just be fitter.
That's one thing that
I kind of
you have really
fall
come
victim to this every once in a while, where I'm not eating as much as I should be on rest days. So make sure you're eating enough on rest days. Make sure you're still eating enough protein and enough carbohydrates. Remember, you have another week of training coming up.
Great
at least in my case, when I was taking Sundays off, Mondays were right back into it. So I need to be fueling my body for Monday's workout
as the night
the day
went
before.
on and things started to get cool,
but I would just make sure I'd still hitting my protein goals, still hitting my carb goals, and still hitting around 3,000 calories, even though we weren't working out. And it's super important that you keep your diet whole foods, and you don't want to be causing inflammation. If you're eating too much processed food, it can cause inflammation in the body. And when we're talking about recovery and staying prime for training, we do not want to have any unwanted inflammation in the body. So sticking to a pretty much whole food diet for the majority of the week
just because
is what I recommend. Just eat the same clean diet you do any other day on your rest days, and you're going to be in a pretty good spot.
Something hot as well.
It's just super crucial to take recovery seriously if you want to push harder in your training and get those gains that you're looking for. And it's definitely something that I don't take lightly. And
I think the fueling strategy was really solid. If I had
these are some of the things that I did to go from a 3:26 marathon to a 3:10 marathon.
I'm a very salty
I did this in the span of about
and I don't
10
know
months,
that I was getting quite
but
enough
I also
sodium
did some other race preps in there. I was doing some
I never
ultras
cramped or anything
and things like that. So
my quads
I
did
shaved
start to get
16 minutes off my marathon
PR on the race, probably from all the
super excited to hit that 3:10 in Austin.
If a little bit of extra sodium would incorporate
these 6 things I talked about, it's going to help you PR your next race. And
so we will
just
definitely
get that
a little bit of a change when it comes to sodium
goal in your head. Get that new goal in your head, and
but
go
everything
hit that
else,
PR.
I just
and please
the gels
incorporate some of these
I've
tools that I talked about
multiple times. Wouldn't change
Another
anything
thing that I didn't mention
than the
as one of the 6 things, but I think is super important
later
is just
in the
overall
race,
consistency.
just because of
so
their texture,
you just have to put the work in.
They don't have any flavor.
And if it's your first marathon,
don't
set a time goal. Just put in the work and show up on race day.
Just because they're a little bit
than you've ever been. Healthier than you've ever been, and just go put out an effort and see where you're at. Use it as a baseline. And then when
having
you
a little bit of flavor,
go to a marathon and you learn about what they're all about and the different things,
but overall,
then we can kind of work back
listening to my body
into our next prep and see
what
kind of time we can run, and it'll give us a better idea what paces we think we should be aiming to hit.
Liquids,
so
mainly being
consistency. If you want to add a 7th factor, it's consistency. You have to put the work in every day, and this doesn't just apply to running; it applies to anything in your life that you're trying to achieve. Just be consistent,
and I recently saw that they came out with a version
you're going to find success eventually
with added electrolytes.
For those of you that don't know, we are currently working on Project 100.
I've also seen.
I got into the Leadville 100 trail race this year, and we're currently in prep for that. And
they've always
I got
tasted great. We've used
with
them
a
since
charity
they came
spot
out, and we love
with
them.
Live Strong. So we're raising money for
if I do change one thing,
those who have been affected by cancer and to support cancer
TBD,
research.
And
I'm dedicating this race
our next race
and fundraising effort in honor of my grandfather, Don Foltz Sr., who passed away from cancer in 2003. He was an avid runner
and pretty much covered everything there is
in the Navy
about our fueling
for
strategy
4 years. And
without giving
I'm
you
really excited to run this race in his honor and just do this race, which has been my goal race to do
some of her
since I started running for a greater purpose than just myself.
Not even just this race,
I'm super excited for this. I'm like I said, I'm raising money for Live Strong. So if you want to help us out in that fundraiser, I will link our fundraising page in the show notes. And when you do go over and donate, please let us know in a comment.
I think one that we really highlighted
when you donate
in this episode
who
is
you would like to honor with your donation.
Scenario.
We are looking for
planning
100 different donors to honor somebody with their donation, so we can honor 100 different people who have battled cancer.
Extra electrolytes.
We want to honor them with a mile in the race. So 100 people.
I mean, even just like we talked about, like
to represent the 100 miles of the race. So that's our goal with Project 100.
If it is not
and I hope you will take some time to head over there and check out our fundraising page. And I appreciate it if you donate. We can't do this without you. And we just want
no
to
doubt you're going to
make
have
a difference and
Absolutely.
shed some light
it's
on
not gonna
those
go to waste.
who have battled cancer.
On top of that,
whether
if
they
you're
won or
having a
lost,
pacer,
we want to
you need
honor their
make
fight.
sure
So please
that
help us do that.
you have enough fuel for your pacer
And that's
as
pretty
well,
much going to wrap up the episode.
I
just want to thank you all for sticking with us
come out
and
to the
giving
race,
this
fly
episode
out,
a
whatever
listen.
it might be.
Like I said
Make
earlier,
sure you have
please
enough
be sure
fuel
to
for
leave
them
us a rating
and are
and
taking care of
review,
them
as
at
it
aid
really helps us
stations
out
when
and
they
gets our
come in
name
as
out
well.
there.
Absolutely.
I'm Hunter Foltz, and we will see
Going
you
off of
in the
that,
next episode.
I think that everybody should have a responsibility and a task, and that might look like having one person in charge of kind of like crew chief, like we have talked about. That crew chief or someone else can be in charge of talking to the runner. I think that it can be very confusing and difficult to get a hold of you sometimes, which makes sense. You are out running, but in times where you need something, like you had reached out about your rain jacket or your gloves and you needed that, it was really valuable to know that I needed to check my phone and I needed to be watching for any updates and not having other people worry about that and message you.
There are definitely points in Leadville that you have service. It's not always perfect, but there is a lot of spots where you get cell service. So I did text you a few times, different times coming before I got to aid station, telling you things that I needed that might not have been obvious. I know coming into Outward Bound 1, I texted you and said, I need the massage gun. My quads are a little bit tight after coming off the power line descent. So if I can communicate ahead of time, I do my best to do that. Again, it's not always possible in some of these remote locations that we're racing in, but definitely can be beneficial if you have the ability to do that. Another thing I wanted to comment on is to make sure that you do have a crew chief and that I'm, as a runner, only communicating to you, and then you from there can delegate to the other crew members on what they need to be doing. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. I
agree. That's, again, what we had discussed in our pre-race meeting. We kind of had a plan of who was going to be responsible for what. We had myself as the communicator, so you were going to be talking to me, as well as refilling your pack. So those were kind of my key responsibilities. We had Armand as just a second helpful hand. He was also the one who went to the front of each of these aid stations and ran you back to where we were at, set up for crewing. My sister and my mom were both kind of like runners. They were grabbing whatever you needed and handing you any snacks that you might want.
Maddie was spraying my legs with biofreeze.
Yep, Maddie also sprayed legs. I think my mom did at one point too. They kind of took turns, and then we had Tori on film. So it was really nice to have everybody have their own set of tasks, and it just worked. It just worked well to have an organized team.
Another thing to mention with Leadville is specifically Outward Bound and Twin Lakes, when these aid stations are absolutely massive, is having somebody run you into where your crew's at. You can get lost trying to find your crew in some of these aids, especially Twin Lakes, because some of the aid crewing areas were not on the main course. You actually had to go off the course to get to them. So having a crew member meet you at the front of the aid and run you into where your crew set up, huge difference maker in a race like Leadville.
Absolutely. I think my last piece of advice would be just kind of sharing the experience. You're all there together. We're all celebrating the successes and the failures, no matter what those look like. And we all want each other to improve and learn throughout this entire experience. It is just a learning experience, whether you learn your limits or you learn that your limit is not there yet. Like you were able to finish, and you know that 100 miles was capable, and it's just kind of on to the next. As crew, we're definitely setting the vibe for each aid station. I would highly suggest, I would request that you don't ask your runner how they're doing. You don't tell them like, ooh, you're looking a little rough. Are you feeling okay? Dismiss those. Make sure that you're welcoming an environment of kind of supportiveness. Telling your runner, you look great. You're doing great. You're killing it out there. You've got this on the agenda. This is what's at the next stop. We're going to be at this next one. Prepared for this. Just kind of hyping your runner up rather than bringing them back down is really important, especially in the longer distance races. Just set the mood.
I definitely am someone who feeds off encouragement and kindness. So I definitely appreciate all of the encouraging words that you guys gave throughout the day, keeping me mentally in it. That's another huge part of being a crew, is just keeping your runner mentally in it and making sure they know that it is possible to get to the finish line no matter how bad they're feeling.
Absolutely.
So I think we all did a great job of sharing the experience and having a good time. You guys definitely had a good time at Twin Lakes by the footage that I've been working through. We have a YouTube video on the race in the works, so I'm not sure exactly when that's going to come out. It's a lot of footage to go through, but we are working on that, and I can confirm that the crew had a good time at Twin Lakes.
It was fun. It's such a party, and again, like I've said a million times, everybody's there to have a good time. No matter what that looks like, we're in it together.
The final thing I want to stress on after hearing that is, people have been congratulating me, saying that, oh, you did a great job out there, this and that. But like, I want to stress that it wasn't a me thing. It was most definitely a team win in this aspect. There's no way I could have crossed that finish line without the crew and team that I had there. So earning that buckle was not a me thing. It was a we thing. And, the old saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. That couldn't be more true when it comes to ultra running. Some people do these races uncrewed, but I don't see how it's possible. Those people are on a whole other level, because it is definitely worth having people who care about you and people who want to see you succeed on your crew. And I just can't thank my crew enough for all they did on race day. Their hard work is appreciated and did not go unnoticed for me.
Well, thank you. We wouldn't be anywhere else. We couldn't have let you do this race alone.
Yeah, I would not have wanted to do it alone. So we had a great time at Leadville. This is going to wrap up our final episode on Leadville. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I encourage you to do that. We did a full race recap, so please go check that one out. And while you're here, leave us a rating on our podcast, only if it's 5 stars. But leave us a rating. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate you tuning in to this week's episode. And we'll be coming at you next week with another episode, and we will also have a race announcement during that episode. So you won't want to miss that. So be sure to check back next week.
Stay tuned.
Thank you, guys.